Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am literally so excited to get into today's topic because we're unpacking something that I know is going to hit pretty close to home for a lot of you. Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of the ultra-independent person. We're going to uncover the hidden logic behind why, for some people, asking for help just feels physically, almost viscerally painful. So if you've ever kind of wondered why you operate the exact way you do, well, buckle up, we are about to completely decode the actual architecture of your mind.
Okay, let's dive into this. You absolutely know the exact feeling we're talking about here. Picture this, right? You're sweating, struggling to put together some ridiculously complex piece of furniture. The instructions look like literal ancient hieroglyphics, and you suddenly realize you're missing a screw. Or maybe you're at work, just completely drowning in a massive pile of tasks with a crazy deadline looming over you. In both of these scenarios, the thought of simply leaning over and asking someone for a hand, it doesn't even cross your mind. Or actually scratch that, if it does, it's instantly shut down by this voice in your head going, nope, no way, I'll just figure it out myself. Reaching out feels exactly like waving a white flag. But why is that?
You know, to the outside world, this level of extreme independence gets totally misjudged. Mainstream labels will quickly call you stubborn or say you're difficult to manage or maybe even label you as antisocial. But behavioral science, it paints a completely different reality. You aren't just being stubborn. You are being incredibly efficient and logically self-reliant. Your brain isn't fundamentally broken or flawed, not at all. It simply has a very specific, highly specialized architecture. And to really grasp how that architecture got built in the first place, we actually need to take a little trip back in time.
Section 1. The Latchkey Blueprint.
See, for a ton of you watching, this fierce, unrelenting self-reliance didn't just magically appear out of thin air. It was forged in a very specific era. Starting right around 1965, we see this massive societal shift kick off, where the structure of households fundamentally changed. Moving into the 1970s, we hit what's known as the analog childhood. And then, hitting the 1980 mark, bam, we enter the true latchkey era. We're talking about an entire cohort of kids who grew up coming home from school to completely empty houses. Think about it. There were no smartphones to quickly text mom or dad. There was absolutely no internet to look up how to fix a problem. Zero immediate safety nets. You were living in a fully analog world where, honestly, you had to be your own rescue party.
7 million. Let that sink in for a second. By 1984, there were 7 million unsupervised children. I really want to emphasize that number because it validates the sheer, massive scale of this ultra-independent origin story. If you were one of those millions, you didn't just casually learn how to make your own afternoon snacks. Your brain was actually undergoing some intense psychological conditioning. The official scientific term for the world you were living in is a high contingency environment. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down an environment where your actions and the outcomes are linked directly together. I mean, zero buffer, none. Think back to being a kid. If your bike chain fell off, what happened? Well, if you didn't physically flip that bike upside down, get your hands greasy and figure out how to fix the chain yourself, you simply didn't get to ride it. Period. End of story. If you didn't figure out your own homework, it didn't get done. This kind of environment literally trained your brain's predictive systems to just completely bypass the so-called luxury of social support. You learn to predict consequences in real time and handle the whole shebang entirely on your own.
Section 2. The Competence Arbor. So as you grew up, that intense childhood conditioning, it didn't just vanish into thin air, it evolved. It turned into this fierce, deeply protective loyalty to your own personal competence. Look at the psychological divide in how we view authority. A mainstream mindset usually places a lot of trust in fancy titles, managers, big institutions. But the ultra-independent mindset, that trust is incredibly low. And why is that? Well, because as you entered adulthood, your prefrontal cortex witnessed some supposedly competent authority figures making massive, historic mistakes. You lived through major economic trauma, the dot-com bubble completely bursting, the devastating 2008 financial crisis. You saw the basic rules of stability change literally overnight. You realized pretty fast that you couldn't control corporate loyalty or the macroeconomy, right? So, naturally, your trust in your own personal skill level shot through the roof.
Which leads us directly to the core philosophy of this entire mindset. The less you depend on external systems, the safer you are from the exact moment the rug inevitably gets pulled out from under you. And you know, this clarifies something that is so highly misunderstood about you. When you're at work pushing yourself to be the absolute most capable, most valuable person in the room, it is not about ego. It's really not. It's a highly logical form of emotional armor. It's a defense mechanism built by a brain that learned a very long time ago that relying on an external system is just a massive vulnerability.
Section 3.
Lower tribal instincts.
So, how exactly does all this impact your social life? Well, there's actually a fascinating correlation between ultra-independence and how we handle group identities. And this brilliantly illustrates your empathy allocation, showing that a massive 80% of your emotional energy goes straight toward direct engagement and reciprocity, while only a tiny 20% is left for parasocial investment or large, broad tribes. You see, mainstream psychology loves to celebrate finding safety in a tribe, right? Like obsessive sports fandoms, massive social circles, celebrity culture, all that stuff. But your mind's architecture, it just doesn't get a dopamine hit from vicarious competition. Nope, you heavily prefer direct care. You only invest your emotional energy where there's genuine, real reciprocity, where your specific, direct actions actually affect the outcome.
Section 4. The shadow of self-reliance. Of course, every structure has its load-bearing limits, right? And we really need to have a completely honest conversation about the hidden costs of this extreme independence. People with this mindset very often become what experts call the silent crisis manager. You develop this intense, almost scary mechanical intuition. You're the one who is just incredibly, unnervingly calm during an emergency, systematically mastering the problem completely alone without even needing to Google the answer. But there is a downside here, and it's psychological isolation. In fact, studies from the Journal of Adult Development show that individuals with this specific background rarely, if ever, seek out social support during incredibly stressful periods. You're just so used to fixing that bike chain yourself that the simple act of reaching out for help feels entirely unnatural.
And honestly, that creates the ultimate paradox. You become the bridge that holds absolutely everything together for everyone else. Everyone relies on you. You're the dependable one, the ultimate fixer, the absolute rock. But the profound psychological cost of all this is that you completely forget that asking for support is actually an option for yourself. You expect absolutely nothing in return, simply because your brain has edited out the very concept